All right, this next part of training is called childhood development. So this is a module that we do early on in our mental training. And while all of us are probably really aware of kind of normal childhood development, it's really important that childhood development is one of the foundations of things that we take into mentoring, because it can just help us understand and unpack why our mentees might do what they do. And it can just really help us kind of put some pieces together. So, childhood development, you'll see if you have your manuals open while we go through the content, you'll be able to see some of the quotes that I say are from the manual, and there are some sections where we can fill in and do some little bits of practical work while we are watching the clip with me. So, a definition of childhood development, which is basically the biological, psychological, and emotional changes that occur in human beings between birth that occur right up until the end of adolescence. So that's where the child starts very dependent and they increase in autonomy. And while there is a predictable sequence, each child has their own unique way and their own unique course for developing. And that's really important to remember, just to sometimes we can get into that trap of children not being what we think they should be at a certain age, and especially children from trauma, they might have a very different course to our own children. So that's really important to remember as you're mentoring. So there's that kind of age-old debate around nurture and nature. So nurture is the idea that whatever we nurture within a child, we will see the fruits of that. Nature is the other idea that some children are born with inherent traits and personalities, and no matter what they might like to do, they are just a part of them. So, I mean, an example of this might be a child that's adopted into your family. There will be some parts of your adopted child or foster child that are just of their birth parents. They laugh like their biological mother, or they might look like their biological mother. The nurturing that a family might give to that child will also shape the child. So it's not only nurture or nature. As you can see in the slide there, and hopefully, oh, you can't see the slide, but the slide I have in front of me says that nurture needs nature. So nature needs nurture. So nature needs nurture to influence throughout the lifespan of the child. So, for example, a child's response to a stressful situation will be largely influenced by their temperament, which is who they are, whether they are more a placid child or a volatile child. However, the relationship and the role modeling that they have with their caregiver will also impact them. So it's kind of finding a balance. So you'll see there is a section in your manuals now which says, and you can write these in, what are some risk factors and what are some protective factors that might impact a child in your community. So you can take a minute now and just have a think about some of those. So some of the risk factors that can be influencing children's lives are things that are listed in your manuals, such as abuse, physical impairment, poor nutrition, mental illness, absent parents, criminality, fear-based parenting, which is the idea of making decisions out of fear rather than out of a sense of security, criminality, poverty, violence, insecure attachment, which I'll talk a little bit about, substance abuse, school failure, divorce and separation, neglect, unemployment, and of course trauma. So you might like to have a think about what are some protective factors or things that we can put in place that might help a child. So you can have a minute just to think about that. You can put me on pause. So some of the protective factors are the following. So a supportive family, safety, self-esteem, a sense of belonging, hope. Hope is a really crucial one. A positive, good home environment, good nutrition, intelligence, love, problem-solving skills, at least one positive adult relationship, and a positive school environment. So they are some protective factors for children to thrive and to flourish. So if there are an outweighing of risk factors, just injecting a few of those protective factors is amazing. So evidence tells us that a person's successes, their health, and their emotional well-being have their roots in childhood. We know that if we can get it right in the early years, we can expect to see children throughout school and throughout their adult lives to thrive. So this is why it's so important. I mean, this is the reason why New Mornings, we started with high school groups and we've slowly gone right back to grade 4, which is the youngest of the children we work with. But excitingly, we have started doing some reading groups with some preps and some very small children, and you just never know what New Mornings might do. We might go earlier. So it's just so important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a theory now called attachment theory. So attachment theory is one of many theories around children and childhood. So attachment theory has kind of had a resurgence. It's been around for a long time, but it's just had a bit more of a, I guess, people have picked it up and have run with it. So attachment theory is right through child health nurses, it's right through child safety, it influences a lot of policy. And basically what attachment theory is the idea that the early bond between a parent and a child is crucial to a child's emotional development. And I mean, I know it's not rocket science, but it seems like this attachment and good attachment is becoming less easy for parents and children to access. So the idea is that a child's early relationship with their primary caregiver, which can be their mother but not always, is important to their social, emotional and cognitive development. Parental attachment styles have a profound effect on children's brain development, and the earliest bonds formed with their caregivers can build a person's lifetime capacity for regulating their emotions. So it's as simple as, if there's a little baby crying, does the mother soothe the little baby? You know, do they pick them up? Do they hug them? Are they present with them? Are they able to just remind that infant and assure that infant that I have attached a short clip, or a link to a short clip. So the fella talking is Ed Tronick. He is a brilliant guru, I suppose, in trauma. And it's a difficult video. I always find it very difficult to watch, but I think it's really important to watch it and make a note of your observations, how you felt when you saw the clip, and what are your thoughts now. And we might discuss some of those when we have our meeting together. How did it feel for you to see the little baby not having the mother respond the way that we believe it should be responded to? The next thing I want you to think about is the mother flicked off her face and was able to respond to the baby, but how would it have been if she hadn't? How would life have looked for the little baby if she hadn't actually became herself again and interacted with the child? So I think psychologically what that happens to a baby is they start to mistrust, their attachment to their mother starts becoming unreliable. The caregiver is not responsive. So it decreases their capacity to regulate their emotions. And so emotional regulation is really the process of being able to understand their own feelings, be okay with their own feelings, and be okay with the feelings of other people. Um, so if a baby isn't having their needs met or their feelings validated, for example, I'm sad, I need a hug, or I need a feed, or I need attention. If those are not being met, then feelings are not safe things to feel. So secure attachment is pretty much vital for brain development, and for those connections in the brain to grow so that children can emotionally regulate. Those relationships need to be deep, they need to be strong, and they are the foundation for healthy emotional development in children. So when a child experiences that beautiful, safe attachment to their caregiver, they can then attach to other people. So it promotes a sense of protection, a sense of comfort. I'm okay. I'm being delighted in, even. I'm being enjoyed. And my feelings are not going to overwhelm me because this person is here for me. So it, in that, thinking about a baby, if a baby is crying and the mother is soothing the infant, that baby will eventually learn to self-soothe themselves. So it's just such an incredible process. And when that secure attachment is there, there's everything changes for a baby. They have like I mentioned, they have a capacity to attach to other people, teachers, like childcare workers, family, friends. People become safe because they have that inner experience of being held and being nurtured. It changes how we see the world, really. If we've had that incredible unconditional love as a baby, um, it changes our whole outlook on life. It gives us good strategies, good coping skills, and the idea that I can flex my behavior. I have good emotional control and behavioral flexibility. So I can control my emotions when I need to, but if I also need to have a cry, I can have a cry. So attachment is just so important. And attachment difficulties are absolutely crucial. And look, you could say a very large percentage of our mentees have had attachment difficulties for lots of different reasons. They can experience attachment difficulties through rejection, through neglect, through the loss of a caregiver. So a parent actually dying or having to go to jail or pass, or just not able to be there. Or even just a disengagement from the caregiver. So that could be through mental illness. That could just be through resentment, through never wanting the child. So when that caregiver is not able to provide the basic regulation with a young child, that's when the baby or the child starts to experience really strong emotions. So fear, sadness, terror, anger, and their brains actually fail to develop those neurocircuits which will help them grow emotionally. So you might remember when I talked about the milestones. So we have these little milestones for children to progress along and to grow along. But if that 13-year-old boy did not have anybody meeting his basic needs when he was 6 months old, there will be a part of his brain that hasn't grown to behave like a 13-year-old boy should. So it's super important just to hold this information. And when you're matched with your mentee, you just might notice some of these things. We've had mentees that want to do things that 3-year-olds would want to do. There's the capacity is different if there's a faulty attachment. So that's probably the best thing to think about. So when a child's needs are left ignored, and inconsistently, they're left with fragmented blueprints to their guide of thinking, feeling, and behavioral responses. So they don't really know what is the right way to be. So if they haven't experienced secure attachment with their caregivers, it's really difficult to get along with people, because it's really difficult to trust people because they haven't had evidence that it's safe to actually do that. So that might make their reactions really unpredictable or unreasonable. They can often be really mistrusting, defensive, and they struggle to find relationships really safe places. So the other thing that's really important is when you're mentoring a child that has attachment difficulties, it's really important. The most number one important thing is acceptance. So accepting whatever they're feeling without trying to push it under the carpet or talk them out of it, because that's what they've had their whole lives. So if a child is sad, if something has happened and they're crying, accept that they're sad and let them be sad is all they need from you as their mentor. So some of the other implications for insecure attachment is that children can feel like their core is bad. So they might feel like I am bad or I'm not worthy of love. So often when a child experiences some sort of discipline, they will feel like they're unloved or that they are not lovable because they're so not used to um, feeling any affection or care. Um, so they start to think, well, there must be something wrong with me because everybody else, that I know receives that care and attention, but I don't. Also, an insecurely attached child might also be frequently anxious. So even in circumstances where you don't think that they would be anxious, they can be chronically anxious. For children with insecure attachments, social learning approaches that center on the behavior are not helpful. So approaches that bring emotional security through nurturing need to precede any efforts to influence behavior. So it needs to be about connection first and then followed on by the behavior after that. The long-term effects of insecure attachment for children. So there's an emotional detachment. They're detached from their emotions. There's a lack of trust. Relationships are challenging, and there's an increased risk of mental illness. So the wonderful thing about mentoring, and I mean, I know that's all a lot of bad news, but the wonderful thing about mentoring is that it can make a difference. So students who have been mentored will have experienced compromised attachment and therefore may have difficulty regulating their emotions and their emotional states. The wonderful thing is that even though it's only once a week, for 1 hour a week, mentors have the capacity to actually become an attachment figure. So by you being in your mentee's life, you will become an attachment figure, which is just an incredibly profound and wonderful thing. So through their relationship with you as their mentor, they will be given that warm, empathetic, nurturing attention that will encourage and connect with the child, helping them to experience unconditional love that they've never experienced before. So we just think that's such a wonderful thing, and it's been proven again and again and again that mentors can truly, truly make a difference. You're not just making a difference, though, you're healing a brain. And we just think it's so exciting that mentors have that opportunity to do that. So it's not just teachers, it's not just teachers' aides that can make a huge difference in children's lives. As a community, we collectively can really move some of these kids into a better space. They can learn to love, to trust, and to have hope that their life could look differently to how it might have looked had you not walked into their lives. So that's the module on attachment. Please take down any questions or any notes that you have, and we can discuss attachment when we catch up. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.